So here's a thought. What if the future isn't something we just discover, but something that's been quietly designed for us, maybe decades in advance? And what if that whole design process happens almost entirely out of sight? Well, in this explainer, based on Annie Jacobsen's fantastic book, The Pentagon's Brain, we're going to pull back the curtain on the agency that pretty much architects our future. You know, so many of the technologies that really define our modern world, the stuff we use every single day without even thinking about it, they all have this hidden origin story. They kind of feel like they just appeared, right? But they didn't. Nope. They were designed for a very, very specific purpose. Let's just start with the biggest one, the internet. I mean, it feels like a fundamental part of reality now, almost like a force of nature. But it wasn't. It actually started as a military project, a way to create a decentralized communications network that could survive a nuclear attack. Or how about GPS? It's so baked into our lives, we don't even notice it anymore. It's this invisible hand guiding everything from our cars to our food deliveries. But it was originally built as a military tool for navigating weapon systems with pinpoint precision. And then you've got something like stealth technology. Okay, it might not be on your phone, but it has completely reshaped geopolitics and the very nature of modern warfare, making entire fleets of aircraft practically invisible. So here's the really crucial point. What if these weren't just happy accidents? What if they were the totally predictable outcomes of a deliberate, long-term strategy? A strategy to literally design the future before it even happens. Well, the architect behind this whole strategy, it has a name. It's an agency that most of us have probably heard of, but very few of us truly understand what they do. This is their headquarters. And honestly, this building perfectly sums up their entire ethos. No signs, completely anonymous. It's literally a physical representation of an agency designed to operate in the background, shaping our world from the shadows. This is DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And their mission statement is, well, it's anything but subtle. It's about creating revolutions and maintaining dominance. In short, their job is to make sure the U.S. is never, ever caught by technological surprise. So how do they actually do it? Well, DARPA operates kind of like a high-tech venture capital firm for the Pentagon. They have a relatively small budget and a super agile staff. And get this, they don't really do the research themselves. They fund the most brilliant minds out there, set them loose on absolutely radical projects, and they get to cut through all the usual government red tape. And when a project hits, when it succeeds, it's transitioned directly to a branch of the military to become a new capability. And this really brings us to the core tension of this whole thing. Is DARPA the brilliant Pentagon's brain, safeguarding the nation with these incredible innovations? Or is it the heart of the military-industrial complex, an engine that's just driving a perpetual state of technological warfare? The truth, as it usually is pretty complicated. So what is the logic that drives this incredibly powerful engine? To really get your head around DARPA, you have to understand a way of thinking that basically forces them to operate decades ahead of everybody else. This quote from a former director, Eberhard Rechtchen, he just perfectly captures what he called the chicken and egg problem. The military can't exactly ask for a weapon system that uses technology that doesn't exist yet, right? So DARPA's job is to invent that technology before anyone even knows they need it. This is what they call pre-requirement research. And this logic, it creates this powerful, self-perpetuating cycle. It goes like this. DARPA creates a new capability, say, the GPS network that we all use. The military then becomes completely dependent on it. That dependency, in turn, becomes a new vulnerability. I mean, what if an enemy could disable our GPS? And that vulnerability justifies the next round of research to counter that threat. It's an engine that is designed to never, ever stop. So what are the real-world consequences of this engine just constantly running way, way ahead of the present day? Well, the time gap between when something is invented and when the public finds out about it is just staggering. Just let that sink in for a second. The technology being developed in secret right now in fields like AI, biotech, autonomous systems, it probably won't be public for another 10 to 20 years. DARPA is literally designing the world of tomorrow while we are all still living in today. The drone is just the perfect example of this. DARPA started working on unmanned aerial vehicles way back in the 1960s, but the first armed drone wasn't actually used until 2001. By the time the public really started debating the ethics of drone warfare, the technology was already generations old, and the fundamental decisions had been made decades before, completely outside of public view. And this is what brings us to what Annie Jacobsen calls a crisis in perception. There's this massive disconnect between how we see technology, as this stream of useful inventions, and the deeper structural layer where these breakthroughs are actually driven by a military logic of strategic dominance. This slide just illustrates the whole issue perfectly. So you have the BRAIN Initiative, which has this public mission we can all get behind, curing awful diseases like Alzheimer's. But a key partner is DARPA, and their mandate isn't public health. It's creating advanced weapons and preventing strategic surprise. The exact same research has two wildly different potential outcomes. This really forces us to ask a pretty critical question. When a military science agency is funding research that has a benevolent public goal, we have to look past the surface and ask ourselves, what is the reason behind the reason? What is the ultimate strategic purpose here? Which leaves us with the final and kind of haunting question from the book. As this engine of innovation pushes us faster and faster into the future, all driven by this mission of technological supremacy, how close to the line can we get and still control what we create? It's a question that has no easy answer at all.